is going to be a build guide for the Infernal Legion Rhoa Titan that I've been playing recently. I'd originally been working through this build with Panda Hands from the Thorn Hub Discord. Cal Torak joined in the conversation a little bit through, and then we kind of all worked through our own versions over the last couple of days and just kind of figuring out where we could go with it. I decided to do it on a Titan. Cal Torak originally started on a Gemling, but I think he's moved on to a Lich, and Panda Hands has been on the Lich the whole time. It seems like the general consensus is that the Lich is probably the best ascendancy to do this on, for a few reasons. I think Cal Torak's got a build guide coming out soon, but yeah, this is my Titan version that I've been playing for the last couple of days. So, the build revolves around Rhoa Mount, which was a skill added in Dawn of the Hunt. It reserves 60 spirit, it summons a companion Rhoa that you can click on to mount it, and while mounted you can only use bow skills, thrown spear skills, and mark skills. So that means you can't cast curses and you can't do a bunch of other shit, so you have to find ways around that. Now, all of our damage is coming from Infernal Legion. Infernal Legion is a support gem that makes your minion take 30% of their maximum life as fire damage per second, so it will kill them. And then they also ignite enemies within a radius of 2 meters, as though dealing base fire damage equal to 25% of their life. So, with that, since the Rhoa's life is its damage, we want to scale as much life as possible. So we can do that through gem levels and also quality. Rhoa has 1% more life per 1% quality, so the more quality you can get, the better. And also, the more levels you can get, the better. So on that, we are using Scythe Spear. Aggravating any bleeding with this weapon also aggravates all ignites on the target, so an aggravated ignite deals 100% extra damage. Infernal Legion only ignites enemies that are within the radius. It doesn't have like a damage over time effect when you move away. It's basically they are either ignited or they're not. So once you have aggravated an ignite with Scythe's Spear, so long as you stay in range, it will stay ignited and you'll never have to attack again. But if you move out of range for whatever reason, you will have to re-aggravate that ignite. There's also a rare spear desecrated mod for 60% around about increased companion damage. I just stuck with Scythe's Spear because I don't really like weapon swapping most of the time. Now for the most important stats you're going to want is plus 2 to the level of all minion skills on your helmet, plus 3 to the level of all minion skills on your amulet, and plus 4 to the level of all minion skills on your scepter. Now, for the scepter specifically, it has to be a Malice or an Omen scepter, because there is a bug with Infernal Legion where if an enemy has critical weakness on them, Infernal Legion is a guaranteed crit, so it means that you can scale your minions' damage through critical damage bonus without having to scale their critical hit chance. This is the same bug as Bira's Anguish had back in 0.2. So this might get fixed, but the Rhoa Infernal Legion interaction has been in... People have been messing around with that for like 5 months, so I don't think that's going anywhere. It shouldn't technically work, because Infernal Legion does say supports skills which create minions which can be damaged. Now the Rhoa can be damaged when you're not riding it, but when you are riding it, it becomes invulnerable. So that might change. I would say that's more an oversight than a bug though. So, for the actual items, we have armor bases on everything, armor, life, minion skills, intelligence, and resistances. You don't need to get intelligence, but the reason why I have intelligence is because with the setup, you want to get at least 157 int and 157 dex to get your level 20 skill gems. So that's something that you're going to need, and then the rest will just be in strength. So then for the amulet, it's life, minion skills, or level to minion skills, resistances. Then I also have allocated sturdy ally, companions gain your strength, and then some strength. This just basically gives you a little bit more life and also applies your strength to your companion to get a bit more life on that as well. The scepter is a Omen scepter specifically, with plus 4 to the level of all minion skills. I have intelligence on mine for the reason I mentioned before, and then also minions have increased maximum life. I do have spirit on this To get the build going, you don't need any extra spirit, but for the specific skill setup that I have, you need at least 252 spirit with the exact, like, quality percentages and blah blah blah. But I'll get a bit more into that in a second. Now, for the other pieces, it's armor, life, resistances, and then armor as elemental damage where you can get it. I just haven't upgraded these yet. Again, armor, life, resist. Armor applies to elemental damage. Armor, life, resists. Armor applies to elemental damage. And then I just have a body rune in here for a bit more life. A cold resist rune in here. In the helmet, I have a primate talisman for minions have 12% increased maximum life. And then I have 2 fox talismans in the body armor for +2 to the quality of all skills. This helps with your reservation on blasphemy and also your the life on your Rhoa. For the rings, it is life, attributes, resistances, life, attributes, resistances. I also have a minions deal 25% increased damage if you've hit recently. Prefix on this, which is a desecrated mod. You can force this with an Amanamu omen. So, a Omen of the Liege, I think it is. And an open prefix. You can basically guarantee this. And then on the belt, it's life, resistances. That's basically it. The charms are Amethyst Charm, or Chaos Res when you get hit. Grounding Charm for shock immunity. Falling Charm for freeze immunity. So we have just under 3.4k life. It's not fantastic. I could get a bit more. Just under 10k armor. Again, not great, but it works well enough. 258 spirit. I have 6 spirit left over, so 252 is plenty. And then that's kind of all that's worth mentioning. You can't see stun threshold here, but it is important. While you're using the Rhoa, you will be stunned. You'll build up heavy stun when you take damage. With this setup, you'll almost never get dismounted. You don't need too much, but you will need some. So, I will quickly run through the skills here. So again, Malice is an aura that comes from the Omen Scepter and a few other places, but that's where we're getting it. While active, emits an aura that continuously inflicts critical weakness on enemies in your presence. Critical weakness has a base duration of 5 seconds and it applies every 0.5 seconds. Now, this setup has a lot of reduced skill effect duration, so this doesn't apply for too long, but it applies for long enough for you to get at least 1 stack all the time. And that's all you need. So this basically enables guaranteed crit for Infernal Legion, which allows you to scale crit damage bonus to multiply your damage by quite a lot. Now, one thing to note is the critical weakness debuff has to be on the enemy before they start taking ignite damage. If the enemy starts taking ignite damage from Infernal Legion and then they have the critical weakness debuff applied, it won't retroactively apply to the ignite damage, so you'll have to dip back out, dip back in. So presence radius is pretty important too. The next skill we're using is Whirlwind Lance. This I'm only using because it works kind of weird with Nova projectiles, where instead of throwing them in a Nova, it throws them in this like, kind of cone. But it basically means that you can hit twice for every throw because you have the projectile hit and then the explosion of the whirlwind itself. So we're using Whirlwind Lance with bleed 3 to guarantee bleeding, because again we want to aggravate a bleed with Scythe Spear to aggravate the ignite. We have fire exposure because you will ignite once an enemy is ignited by Infernal Legion. You have a very high chance to ignite with basically any amount of fire damage, so this is pretty easy. Nova projectiles, like I mentioned before, it throws them out in a cone instead of around you, so you can basically just kind of blanket the ground in front of you. Potent exposure for increased exposure effect, and rapid attack speed because the damage of the skill itself doesn't really matter, and this just gives you more attack speed because Scythe of Spear doesn't have a lot of attack speed on its own. Rhoa mount, as I said before, this is the bread and butter of your build. You want to push the levels up as much as possible, and you want to get as high quality as possible. On this we're using Infernal Legion. This, as I explained before, it ignites enemies in a radius around the minion. Searing Flame for 100% more magnitude of ignite inflicted with support skills. Feeding Frenzy for 30% more damage. Feeding Frenzy 1 and 2 are exactly the same for this build because neither of them give you more damage. One of them just makes you take slightly less damage. Super Critical for 100% increased critical damage bonus. Again, this is because we're using the Malice critical weakness bug. If you weren't using this, you would probably use Zolf's Pyre, I think, which gives 20% of damage as extra chaos damage, and then allows chaos damage to ignite. And now the most expensive part of the build is Diela's Desire. This is more expensive than basically every build video I've done, just in this one support gem. It's not necessary. You could just use minion. You could just use minion mastery. However, to get the exact setup that I have, you will probably need this because it also has a 90% reservation multiplier, so it reduces the amount that Rhoa mount reserves. And then, as you can see, we also have 2 curses in Blasphemy, which is a pretty high cost, along with Heightened Curse. Now, you might be able to do this without Diela's Desire if you don't have Heightened Curse in Blasphemy. In fact, we can test that right now. Not. Okay then. Okay, thanks for that, GGG. As I was saying, if you remove Heightened Curse from Blasphemy, you don't need Diela's Desire to get the reservation. You'll have plenty of spirit left over. You'll just have slightly weaker curses. But with Diela's Desire and Heightened Curse, you'll get kind of the full effect. You'll need at least 252 spirit with the 2 Fox Talismans in the body armor and 20% quality on Blasphemy. Now, Diela's Desire is not required. It is absolutely not necessary for this build. It's just one of the strongest support gems that we can throw on this. And it is around about 28 to 30 divines. It is a massive boost to your power, but it is not like build enabling. The next thing we're using is Time of Need. On Titan, we can get this down to a 1.33 second duration between blessings. So this basically means that you will recover the life value of Time of Need, you will remove curses, and you will remove elemental ailments every 1.33 seconds. We have compressed duration for less skill effect duration to kind of, this gets us down from around about 2 seconds down to 1.33. So that's kind of why we're using that. And then the last thing is Blasphemy. Curse skills apply as an aura, so you don't need to cast them, which means it works while you're riding the Rhoa, because normally, like I said before, you can only use bow attacks, thrown, speed attacks, and mark skills while you're mounted. In this, we have Elemental Weakness. We have Temporal Chains for big slows, because the build isn't super tanky, and this really, really does help. This is around about an 8% slow, I guess. Yeah, 80% slow inflicted. Now, obviously, this is reduced quite massively on bosses. And then we're also using Ritualistic Curse because it gives increased area of effect without a mana multiplier like Magnified Area would give. We have Slow Potency because this affects the slow that you get from Temporal Chains. And then Heightened Curse for increased curse magnitude. So that covers the skills. There really isn't that much to the build. And with that, we'll quickly run through the tree itself. So again, we are Titan. We have Colossal Capacity because we have no choice to get to Hulk in Form for 50% increased effect of small passive skills. Then we also have Mysterious Lineage for 15% more maximum life, and Stone Skin for 50% more armor from equipped body armor. It's all pretty straightforward, there's nothing super exciting there. We path out here, up this way, we grab the Reduced Duration here. This you'll only grab once you start using Time of Need, whenever you do start using it. It's kind of, obviously a lot stronger once you grab the reduced skill effect duration up here as well. That's what gets you down to the super low number that we have. We grab Presence Area of Effect here with a little bit of Aura Magnitude, because Aura Magnitude affects your curses from Blasphemy as well as Curse Magnitude. We come here, we grab Jewel Socket. We come up here to Holy Protector for 25% increased maximum life and around about 60% increased minion damage from these small nodes. I've got these small nodes here for armor, and then Ancient Aegis for increased armor from equipped body armor. This is slightly better than if you put points into Projectile Bulwark, at least number-wise. We come down here, we grab a jewel socket, we take these nodes here for Lone Warrior, for aura effect. This doesn't stop your presence effects, because they're not technically auras as far as I know. It's just an on or off thing. It can't be scaled with aura effect. So this basically just lets us scale our cursors more. Then we come up here, grab another jewel socket. We path up through this minion damage, down through this minion area of effect, and then minion life, because area of effect is great, you won't be able to get that much. You can also path down here for some minion life and growing swarm, but I haven't bothered pathing into that after sort of trying everything out. Over here we can grab Dead Can Dance for 25% increased maximum life for minions, and then 2 small nodes for 22% increased critical damage bonus each, because Titan, obviously the Hulking form, 50% increased, really helps with these. We come down here, we grab another jewel socket. I'll explain all the jewels in a sec. Down here to grab Vile Mending for minion life. Up here for Gigantic Following for life and damage. And then minions are gigantic. Gigantic minions have 20% more maximum life, 20% more damage, and 20% increased size. Another thing, if you're struggling with the efficiency, you can also just put 1 point into Lord of Horrors. That gives you 12% increased reservation efficiency. You could technically anoint Easy Going for 25% increased reservation efficiency, if you really wanted to do that. We then path all the way down here to grab Necrotized Flesh for 40% increased maximum life. We path up here for Master of Hexes for increased curse magnitudes. The curse duration doesn't matter because it's applied by Blasphemy, it has no duration anyway. We grab Whispers of Doom for the additional curse. This lets us run both Elemental Weakness and Temporal Chains. Again, we grab these reduced duration nodes here for time of need, and then we grab the last jewel socket. So jewels. The jewels that I'm running personally are minions have increased critical damage bonus. 20% plus is perfectly fine, I would say. And then minions have increased maximum life. This is a Desecrate only mod, and it rolls from 4% to 8%. 5 to 8% probably perfectly fine. And that's basically what I'm running for all of these, is critical damage bonus and increased maximum life for minions. Same here. And then for the other jewels, it is a From Nothing for Crimson Assault, which allows you to grab Nourishing Ally for companions have 20% increased maximum life and 20% increased life recovery while a companion is in your presence. Companions have increased maximum life and increased defenses while a companion is in your presence, and then companions deal increased damage and companions have increased maximum life. I also have one node here for 37% increased stun threshold if you haven't been stunned recently. This is basically all you need for this specific setup. Last jewel is a Megalomaniac that I have for Polished Iron and Grip of Evil. Grip of Evil is 40% increased critical damage bonus, so this is basically stronger than the normal jewels, and it also allows you to grab another thing. Now, Polished Iron, I have to say, is really important. Even if you can't get Grip of Evil, make sure you get Polished Iron. Even if you anoint instead of Sturdy Ally, Grip of Iron is really important, because this gives you additional stun threshold equal to 30% of your item armor on equipped armor items. Now, we have a very high armor, body armor, and then also as much armor as we can get on these pieces as well. This gives you a lot of flat stun threshold, where you will never be dismounted unless you're playing like a clown. But yeah, that basically covers the whole thing. It's a pretty fun build. It's not super duper strong. It does use a couple of bugs, but almost every build I've played this league has been negatively bugged, so I'm allowing myself this one. I don't think this is perfect. This probably isn't the most, like, the best setup, but this is what I've been playing. If you do try it out, let me know how it goes for you. If you have any questions at all, ask them in the comments. Even if it's not about this build specifically, I'll answer basically anything about the game. Yeah, thanks for watching.